As I'm sure many of you already know basically what the coronavirus is, this video is simply going to be an update on the coronavirus and how it could affect the economy, not just in China, but around the world. The coronavirus outbreak started late last year, and currently it looks like it's declining, which let's hope it is. As of the time of this recording, there have been 73,000 confirmed infections throughout the world, only 29 of which, however, have been in the United States. So if you're in the United States, you probably don't have to worry so much. There have been, however, 1,874 people who have died, just about all of them in China. So the coronavirus outbreak is certainly something you should be aware of. No, I don't think you should be panicking about it because, as we just saw, there's only been 29 cases in the entire United States. So if you live in the US, you shouldn't be worrying about it too much, but it is still something to be aware of. A lot of people are comparing it to the SARS outbreak, which happened almost 2 decades ago, back in 2003. One of the main differences here is, first, there are a lot more infected. However, because this coronavirus is actually less deadly than the SARS virus, the death rate is only about 2%, as opposed to the SARS virus being at 10%. So that is actually a pretty good thing. There are more people who are infected, however, so that's unfortunate. But looking at the SARS virus, from the time it was actually announced to the time that they deemed it was in recovery, that took about 9 months. Now, at that point, China did not cooperate quite as much as it's doing today. So hopefully it doesn't take 9 months. If it does, well, that's really going to suck, and as we'll see, the economy will certainly take a downturn. As a matter of fact, it's already happening. If we look at China first, we can see that because they're basically under quarantine and there are so many people under lockdown, the economy is naturally going to be hurting a little bit. According to the New York Times, there are about 150 million Chinese who are currently under lockdown. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that they're being quarantined or anything like that, but it does mean they have some restrictions regarding when they can go out and what they can do. For example, in one district in the city of Xi'an, I probably pronounced that horribly wrong, you are only allowed to leave once every 2 to 3 days. And that's only for 2 hours at a time to buy the essentials. So we can imagine that if you only are allowed to leave every 2 or 3 days and they have 150 million people under lockdown, that's not really going to be beneficial to the economy. Numerous factories are closing, and if you own a grocery store, I imagine your profits are going down because people aren't coming as often. It's just overall a very bad situation. To give you an example of what that would be like in the United States, 150 million people is about 10% of China's population. That would be roughly equivalent to the entire state of Texas. So imagine the US government somehow trying to put the entire state of Texas on some form of lockdown. We can clearly see that there are going to be economic problems here, and we're already seeing that. The inflation rate of China has increased pretty dramatically. Last year, the inflation rate was somewhere between 2 and 3%, but January of this year, because of the coronavirus, it has more than doubled to 5.4%. That is a very significant increase. Economists believe that overall, China's GDP will decrease by up to 1%. And as a result, the world GDP will decrease by up to 0.3%. Now granted, those aren't huge numbers. During the Great Recession, in a 3-month period, the United States GDP decreased by something like 6.3%, which is significantly worse than just the 1% here. But any decrease in GDP is generally not viewed as a good thing. And one of the ways it'll have an impact, not just on China, but in the United States as well, is through tourism. There are a number of places like New York, Las Vegas, to just name a few, that are pretty dependent on tourism. And as you can expect, because of this coronavirus, there are significantly less Chinese tourists coming to the United States than there otherwise would have been. There are roughly 1.6 million Chinese tourists every year. However, that number is going to be quite a bit lower now. And Chinese people are the 3rd highest nationality who come here as tourists, which means that we're going to lose a fair amount of money there, especially because they are the ones who spend the most. Out of all tourists, they spend $6,500 on average compared to $4,000. So we're going to be hit by losing presumably billions of dollars in tourism. But that's just one industry. Because of the coronavirus, Apple stock has decreased. Granted, it's only like 2.5%, but again, a decrease is not a good thing. And the reason for this is because 15% of their manufacturing happens in China. And when the factories close because no one can go to work, you're going to see a decrease in your stocks. But it's not just Apple. It's also McDonald's, Starbucks, Disney, Nike. There are plenty of companies that are going to be hit financially because of this. If we look at MarketWatch.com, here are a list of several of the companies that have, at least to an extent, some business presence in China. And as you can clearly see, the vast majority of them are red. And in accounting, red is generally not a good number. It's safe to say that the US economy will be hit at least a little bit because of the coronavirus. Now, economists believe that we'll be able to bounce back pretty quickly. Not just us, but the world and China as well. That in quarter 2 or 3 of this year, we should basically be where we were before. And hopefully that is the case. But remember, containing the SARS virus, or at least recovering from the SARS virus, took 9 months. If this follows that same pattern, that could take us almost up to the election of 2020. which could be very bad for Trump. How well the economy is doing is basically his #1 pitch right now. There are many people who don't particularly like him as a person or what he stands for, but they recognize that his policies have been good for the economy because we're doing really well. Which means a downturn, even if it's a small one, not necessarily a recession, just something like this, stocks going down, could negatively impact his re-election campaign. So overall, the coronavirus seems to be on its way out. Hopefully that is true. But the economy in the United States as well as the world will take a hit, and hopefully we bounce back fairly quickly. What are your thoughts on this topic? Let me know down below, and if you have any questions, feel free to check out all of my sources down below. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.